The morning started like any other in the great crystal halls of the Consortium Council. Ambassador Kaisen adjusted his ceremonial robes and took his place at the curved table where representatives from 6 different worlds gathered to discuss matters of galactic importance. The Vorthan Republic had held this position for 2 centuries, and Kaisen took pride in maintaining the peaceful traditions that had kept war from touching civilized space for over 3,000 years. The communication alert came as a soft chime that echoed through the chamber's perfect acoustics. A tall, crystalline being with a voice like singing glass stepped forward. Honored council members, we have received an unusual transmission from an uncharted system. Kaisen's 4 eyes focused on the holographic display that materialized above the table. The image showed a bipedal creature with pale skin, dark hair pulled back neatly, and only 2 eyes positioned in the front of its head. The being wore simple clothing and spoke in measured tones. Greetings to the respected leaders of galactic civilization. I am Ambassador Hyjin Park, speaking on behalf of humanity from the Sol System. We have recently achieved faster than light travel and humbly request the opportunity to discuss our species' integration into your peaceful community. Counselor Thanville, whose purple tentacles swayed with interest, leaned forward. How curious. They developed FTL technology without any contact with existing civilizations. Most species require guidance from more advanced cultures. Their request is quite formal, observed Representative Zilka, her scaled features showing approval. They understand proper diplomatic protocol, despite their isolation. The communications officer continued the briefing. They identify their homeworld as the 3rd planet in the Sol System, previously unknown to our databases. Long-range scans confirm a single inhabited world with approximately 8 billion inhabitants. Kaisen studied the transmitted data with growing fascination. The humans appeared to be a young species, recently unified under a single planetary government. Their technology seemed functional, but crude compared to consortium standards. Their ships were basic metal constructions that relied on simple fusion drives and primitive shielding systems. They seem eager to learn, he noted. Perhaps we can guide them toward proper civilization. 3 weeks of preparation led to the first formal meeting at Harmony's Rest, a neutral station positioned between major trade routes. Kaisen arrived with a full diplomatic escort, expecting to meet with a small delegation of nervous primitives seeking acceptance into the greater galactic community. Ambassador Minho Kim surprised everyone. The human male possessed an easy confidence that put even experienced diplomats at ease. His warm smile seemed genuine, and his respectful manner impressed the consortium representatives who had expected typical species arrogance from newcomers. We are deeply honored by this opportunity, Minho said, bowing in a gesture that the assembled aliens found charmingly primitive. Humanity has dreamed of meeting other intelligent life for generations. Dr. Ji Wu Li stood beside him, a woman whose careful attention to every detail suggested intense curiosity about galactic civilization. She asked thoughtful questions about consortium history, trade relationships, and cultural exchange programs. Her genuine interest in learning proper diplomatic customs earned approving nods from the alien representatives. Commander So-Young Choi remained quietly in the background. Introduced as a security advisor though, her role seemed largely ceremonial. The humans clearly understood that their primitive weapons posed no threat to advanced civilizations, and her presence appeared to be a matter of form rather than function. The gifts humanity brought created the strongest impression. Musical recordings that somehow conveyed emotions directly to the listener, despite the alien nature of human vocal patterns. Biological samples from their homeworld showed incredible diversity, with creatures that had evolved in ways that surprised even veteran xenobiologists. Most impressive were the artworks, simple images and sculptures that moved several consortium members to visible emotional responses. Your species possesses remarkable creativity, Counselor Thanville admitted, his tentacles curling with pleasure as he examined a small painting of Earth's ocean. Such emotional expression is rare among spacefaring civilizations. Minho's response showed appropriate humility. We have much to learn about controlling such impulses. We hope that integration with galactic civilization will help us mature as a species. The formal negotiations proceeded smoothly. Humanity accepted standard terms for new species integration, without argument. Limited expansion rights within their local stellar region. Technology sharing agreements that would gradually introduce them to advanced systems. Submission to consortium authority for resolving any future disputes with other civilizations. We understand our place, Minho assured the council. Humanity is young and inexperienced. We need guidance from wiser species before we can truly contribute to galactic peace. Such reasonable acceptance impressed even skeptical representatives, who had dealt with aggressive newcomer species in the past. The humans seemed to genuinely understand that joining galactic civilization meant accepting established hierarchies and proven methods of maintaining order. As the session concluded, Kai-san felt satisfaction at another successful integration. The humans would need time to develop proper civilization, but their willingness to learn suggested they could eventually become valuable junior members of the consortium. The crystalline communications officer filed the final reports as the human delegation prepared to return home with preliminary agreements in hand. Another species had been peacefully welcomed into the galactic community, continuing the consortium's proud tradition of expanding civilization through diplomacy rather than conquest. None of them noticed how carefully the humans had observed every security protocol, every ship design, every administrative structure they encountered during their visit. Dr. Ji-Woo Lee sat across from Ambassador Kai-san in the station's diplomatic dining hall, her eyes bright with curiosity as she listened to another fascinating story about galactic history. The Vorthan diplomat enjoyed these informal conversations with the human cultural specialist, finding her questions both insightful and refreshingly naive. "Tell me more about the Kalari uprising," Ji-Woo said, leaning forward with genuine interest. "How did the consortium manage to resolve such a complex territorial dispute without any bloodshed?" Kaisen's four eyes gleamed with pride as he explained. The careful diplomatic process that had taken nearly a decade to complete. We established neutral zones, created economic incentives for cooperation, and used cultural exchange programs to build understanding between the opposing factions. The key was patience and showing all parties that peaceful solutions benefit everyone. Ji-Woo nodded thoughtfully, making notes on her datapad. On Earth, we had similar challenges during our Great Consolidation period. Our historians describe it as humanity's greatest achievement in learning to resolve differences through peaceful means. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. It took time for all nations to understand that cooperation served everyone's interests better than conflict. Some governments were more stubborn than others in accepting this truth. What she did not mention was how those stubborn governments had been systematically eliminated through coordinated strikes that left their military capabilities in ruins. The 17 nuclear exchanges had been carefully planned to remove resistance, while preserving infrastructure. 4 continents had seen their ecosystems collapse, but this had been considered acceptable losses for achieving global unity. Across the station, Commander So-Young Choi attended another security briefing with consortium military advisors. Her quiet presence had become familiar to the alien officers, who appreciated her thoughtful questions about their defensive strategies. "Your patrol routes are very efficient," she observed, studying the holographic display of fleet movements. "How do you coordinate between different species' naval traditions?" General Vextar, a towering insectoid with compound eyes, buzzed with pleasure at the question. "Each species contributes their strengths to the common defense. The Zephyrians provide speed, the Vorthans offer tactical analysis, and the Quillen bring superior shielding technology." So-Young made careful notes about response times, communication protocols, and the locations of major fleet bases. Her questions seemed perfectly natural for a military officer trying to understand how advanced civilizations maintained order across vast distances. "What about population centers?" she asked. "How do you protect civilian areas during conflicts?" The general eagerly explained evacuation procedures, defensive installations around major cities, and the protocols for civilian protection during emergencies. All of this information was freely shared among consortium allies, and the humans' interests showed their commitment to learning proper defensive strategies. Captain Dong Hyen Park had become a familiar figure in the station's cargo bays and docking facilities. His official role as supply coordinator gave him access to areas that fascinated him greatly, and the consortium engineers enjoyed showing off their advanced systems to such an appreciative audience. "Your loading mechanisms are incredibly efficient," he told Chief Engineer Malkuth while examining the automated cargo systems. "How much throughput can a station like this handle during peak operations?" The engineer, a bulky creature with 6 arms that moved in perfect coordination, proudly displayed the technical specifications. "We can process over 10,000 cargo containers per cycle, with full automated sorting and distribution to member worlds." Dong Haeon asked detailed questions about supply chain logistics, fuel distribution networks, and the transportation schedules that kept goods flowing between star systems. He showed particular interest in emergency supply protocols and the backup systems that maintained operations during disruptions. "On Earth, our supply networks are much simpler," he admitted. "We're still learning how to manage resources on such a large scale." The engineer enthusiastically shared decades of accumulated knowledge, pleased to help these newcomers understand the complexities of galactic commerce. Every detail about choke points, critical supply routes, and vulnerable infrastructure was carefully noted by the attentive human captain. Throughout the station, other human team members conducted similar conversations with consortium personnel. Each interaction seemed innocent and educational, with humans showing appropriate humility about their primitive understanding of galactic civilization. Dr. Min Jun-yoon, listed as a medical advisor, spent time with consortium health officials learning about alien biology and medical protocols. His questions about population health, medical supply distribution, and emergency response procedures were answered readily by helpful experts. Researcher Yoon-ji Kim toured the communication centers, asking about information networks, data transmission, protocols, and the systems that kept different species connected across the galaxy. Her fascination with galactic communication technology impressed the technical staff who showed her everything. Ambassador Minho Kim concluded another successful round of negotiations, signing preliminary agreements that granted humanity the standard rights offered to new species. His visible relief at securing consortium protection and guidance touched the alien diplomats, who remembered their own species' early struggles with galactic integration. "We are grateful for your patience with our inexperience," he told the assembled council members. "Humanity has much to learn before we can truly serve galactic civilization." The consortium representatives found such humility refreshing after dealing with more aggressive species who demanded immediate equal status. These humans understood their place and showed proper respect for established galactic order. As the formal sessions concluded, the various human team members compiled their observations and prepared detailed reports. Every conversation had provided valuable intelligence about consortium capabilities, weaknesses, and operational procedures. The aliens saw eager students learning about galactic civilization. The humans saw a comprehensive intelligence-gathering operation that exceeded their most optimistic expectations. The emergency alert reached every consortium world simultaneously, carrying news that sent waves of horror through civilized space. The Krathan hegemony had struck again, this time targeting a civilian evacuation convoy carrying families fleeing the war zones. Over 15,000 non-combatants had died in the unprovoked attack. their transport ships destroyed without warning or mercy. Ambassador Kai-san stood before the emergency council session, his normally calm demeanor shaken by the reports streaming in from the disaster zone. The holographic displays showed the aftermath of the massacre, debris fields that had once been passenger vessels carrying children and elderly refugees to safety. The hegemony grows bolder with each attack, he announced to the assembled representatives. They no longer distinguish between military and civilian targets. Our traditional diplomatic approaches have failed to contain their aggression. The council chamber buzzed with angry discussion in a dozen different languages and communication methods. The Krathin had been a problem for nearly a century, expanding their territory through brutal conquest, while the consortium tried to maintain peace through negotiation and economic pressure. Every attempt at diplomatic resolution had failed, and now innocent lives were being lost on an unprecedented scale. Representative Zilka's scales shifted to deep red, indicating her species' equivalent of rage. They must be stopped. But our defensive fleets are positioned to protect member worlds, not conduct offensive operations in neutral space. Councillor Thanvel's tentacles writhed with agitation. Military intervention would require months of preparation. The council must debate, votes must be taken, and logistics must be arranged. By then, how many more innocents will die? Ambassador Minho Kim had been sitting quietly at the observers' table, but now he stood and requested permission to address the council. His expression showed the same horror and determination that filled the chamber. Honored council members, perhaps humanity could offer assistance during this crisis, he said. Our ships are not advanced by your standards, but we have medical supplies and transport capacity. We could help with humanitarian relief while you prepare your response to the hegemony. The suggestion was met with grateful acceptance. The humans had shown nothing but helpfulness since their arrival, and any aid would be welcome during such a tragedy. Kaizan personally thanked Minho for his species' generosity. Within hours, a small fleet of human vessels departed for the crisis zone. The ships appeared exactly as expected, basic metal constructions, with simple hull designs and primitive engine signatures. Medical frigates, supply transports, and refugee carriers moved at modest speeds toward the war-torn region, where millions of displaced beings waited for help. Dr. Su Jinhan commanded the hospital ship New Dawn, a vessel that looked like a converted cargo hauler with medical equipment bolted to its hull. Her team worked with remarkable efficiency, establishing refugee camps and medical stations that impressed even experienced consortium relief workers. The humans are natural organizers, reported Colonel Vexstar to the council. Their camps are models of efficiency, and their medical staff show exceptional skill with non-human physiology. Captain Dongyan Park served as communications coordinator aboard the New Dawn, monitoring the constant stream of refugee transport requests and supply distribution reports. His calm professionalism helped maintain order during the chaotic relief operations. The crisis escalated when long-range sensors detected a Krathin battle group approaching the refugee zone. The dominant will led a formation of heavy cruisers and destroyers, their weapons charged and targeting systems active. The hegemony had apparently decided to eliminate the refugee camps entirely. Consortium observers watched helplessly from distant monitoring stations as the Krathin ships closed on the defenseless human relief vessels. The primitive medical ships had no chance against military-grade weapons, and evacuation was impossible given the number of refugees still being processed. Captain Donghayan received the threat assessment while coordinating supply drops to the largest refugee camp. His response was calm and immediate, speaking into his communication system with the same professional tone he had used for routine logistics reports. All units, this is Guardian Command. Execute Protocol 7. The transformation began instantly. Hull plates that had appeared to be simple metal construction retracted with mechanical precision, revealing hidden compartments and weapon systems that defied every assumption about human technology. The New Dawn's medical bay sections folded, back to expose massive energy cannons that dwarfed anything in the consortium's arsenal. Similar transformations occurred across the human fleet. Supply ships revealed missile batteries and shield generators. Transport vessels deployed fighter squadrons from concealed launch bays. The modest refugee carriers became command ships coordinating attack patterns with terrifying efficiency. The Krathan Hegemony battle group had expected to massacre helpless relief workers. Instead, they faced a military force that surpassed their most advanced warships in every category. The human weapons fired with surgical precision, targeting specific systems to disable rather than destroy. But the message was unmistakably clear. In 4 minutes and 37 seconds, the entire Hegemony attack force was reduced to powerless hulks drifting in space. Their weapons were gone, their engines dead, their communication systems destroyed. The survivors would live, but their capacity to threaten anyone had been permanently eliminated. The refugee camps below continued their operations without interruption. Medical teams kept treating patients. Supply coordinators kept distributing food and shelter materials, and transport schedules maintained their steady rhythm of moving displaced families to safety. Captain Dong Haiyan returned to his routine communications duties, updating refugee transport manifests as if nothing unusual had occurred. The only change was that the skies above the camps were now completely secure. The consortium observers stared at their sensor readings in stunned silence, trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The holographic transmission appeared in the consortium council chambers without warning, bypassing all standard communication protocols. Admiral Soyoung Choi stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a massive warship, her uniform now bearing insignia that clearly marked her as a high-ranking military commander, rather than the simple security advisor the council remembered, honored. "Members of the consortium," she began, her voice carrying none of the respectful deference that had characterized previous human communications. "I want to thank you for your generous hospitality during our initial diplomatic exchanges. The information you shared has been extremely valuable for our assessment of galactic power structures." Ambassador Kaisan felt his 4 hearts skip simultaneously as the implications of her words became clear. Behind Admiral Choi, he could see tactical displays showing star charts, fleet positions, and strategic assessments that contained far more detail about consortium defenses than any newcomer species should possess. "I am speaking to you from the bridge of the final negotiation," she continued, "which you knew as our diplomatic transport vessel. As you can see, our ships serve multiple purposes, depending on operational requirements." The transmission expanded to show the vessel's true nature. The modest diplomatic transport had transformed into a dreadnought that dwarfed the largest consortium. Battleships, weapon arrays extended from hidden compartments, shield generators hummed with barely contained energy, and fighter squadrons launched from concealed bays to form defensive patterns around the massive ship across the galaxy. Similar transformations were occurring. Every human vessel that had been positioned as part of cultural exchanges, humanitarian missions, or trade delegations revealed advanced military capabilities that exceeded anything in the consortium's databases. Supply ships became carrier platforms, launching strike fighters. Medical stations transformed into forward command bases. Research vessels deployed sensor networks that could monitor entire star systems. General Tae Hien Song coordinated the campaign against the Krathan hegemony from his command ship, formerly disguised as a cargo freighter. His approach to warfare bore no resemblance to the honorable combat traditions practiced by galactic civilizations, where other species sought to defeat enemy forces through superior tactics or technology. The humans systematically eliminated the enemy's ability to continue fighting. The first strikes targeted communication networks, leaving hegemony forces unable to coordinate their responses. The second wave destroyed supply lines and manufacturing facilities, cutting off resources needed to maintain military operations. The third phase eliminated command structures, leaving individual units isolated and directionless. Captain Yu Kong led the Psychological Warfare Division, broadcasting carefully crafted messages that exploited existing tensions within Krathan society. Her transmissions highlighted the costs of endless military expansion, the suffering caused by their leaders' ambitions, and the benefits of accepting peaceful integration into a larger galactic community. Within days, hegemony populations began questioning their government's policies. Riots broke out on industrial worlds, where workers refused to continue producing weapons for wars they no longer supported. Military units deserted their posts rather than fight for causes they could no longer justify. Major Hyosiab Nam commanded strike teams that operated with surgical precision, targeting the social and economic foundations that supported Krathan militarism, rather than simply destroying military installations. His forces dismantled the entire infrastructure that made aggressive expansion possible. Industrial facilities were converted to peaceful production. Military academies became educational institutions teaching cooperation instead of conquest. Government buildings were transformed into administrative centers focused on civilian welfare rather than territorial expansion. The speed of the campaign shocked even experienced military observers. The Krathan hegemony, which had terrorized the galaxy for over a century, simply ceased to exist as a political entity within 6 weeks. Their military forces surrendered without major battles. Their populations accepted new leadership without significant resistance, and their territory was peacefully integrated into expanding human administrative zones. Dr. Ji Wu Li, now identified as Director of Strategic Assessment, addressed the stunned consortium leadership from the same station where she had once asked innocent questions about galactic history and culture. Her demeanor remained pleasant and professional, but her message carried unmistakable authority. The elimination of the hegemony serves as a demonstration of human capabilities, she explained, displaying strategic analyses that showed intimate knowledge of every consortium world's defenses, resources, and potential vulnerabilities. We offer all galactic civilizations the same choice. We offered the Krathan, accept integration under human guidance, or be redesignated as potential threats to universal stability. The choice was presented with the same polite courtesy that had marked humanity's initial diplomatic contact. The same respectful tone, the same reasonable language, the same apparent concern for galactic peace and prosperity. Ambassador Kaison stared at the displays showing human forces positioned throughout consortium space, realizing how completely his species had been outmaneuvered. Every cultural exchange had been a military deployment. Every humanitarian mission had established forward operating bases. Every innocent question about galactic civilization had been intelligence gathering for conquest planning. The humans had never come as junior members, seeking acceptance into galactic civilization. They had arrived as apex predators conducting a comprehensive assessment of new hunting grounds, evaluating every species for potential threats, useful resources, and administrative challenges. Representative Zilka scales had shifted to the pale color that indicated shock and submission. "What do you require of us?" Admiral Choi's smile carried the same warmth that Ambassador Minho had shown during their first meeting. "Simply your cooperation in establishing a more efficient system of galactic governance. We believe you will find the results quite satisfactory." The transformation of galactic civilization had begun, guided by humanity's definition of peace, order, and prosperity. The great crystal chamber of the Consortium Council looked exactly the same as it had 1 year ago. But everything else had changed completely. Fleet Admiral Minho Kim stood at the central podium where alien ambassadors had once debated as equals, his human uniform marking him as the ultimate authority in what had become a very different kind of galactic government. The representatives of 6 species sat in their traditional seats, but their posture showed none of the confident independence they had once displayed. Ambassador Kaisan kept his 4 eyes focused respectfully on the human admiral, waiting patiently for instructions, rather than preparing to voice his own opinions about galactic policy. Citizens of the galaxy, Minho began, his voice carrying the same warmth that had charmed the council during their first meeting. We gather today to review the remarkable progress achieved during our first year of unified administration. The holographic displays around the chamber showed star maps, painted in peaceful blue rather than the red zones that had marked conflict areas just months earlier. Trade routes flowed smoothly between worlds, marked with green indicators showing increased commerce and prosperity. Military installations had been converted to civilian purposes, their weapons replaced with manufacturing facilities and research centers. Crime rates have decreased by 89% across all member worlds, Admiral Minho announced, gesturing toward statistical displays that confirmed the dramatic improvements. Interstellar trade has increased by 340%. Military expenditures have been reduced to minimal levels focused entirely on peaceful security operations. Director Jiwoo Lee stood to present detailed analysis of the transformation. Her friendly smile remained the same as when she had asked innocent questions about galactic culture, but her role had expanded considerably beyond cultural specialist. The integration process has exceeded our most optimistic projections, she reported. Species adaptation to unified administrative systems shows remarkable consistency across all demographic groups. Resistance incidents have dropped to statistically insignificant levels. Representative Zilka, whose red scales had faded to a more subdued brown color, nodded approvingly at the statistics. Her species had been among the first to recognize the benefits of human guidance, and their worlds had prospered accordingly. Captain Dong Hyen Park appeared via holographic transmission from his office in the former hegemony capital. His title had changed from supply coordinator to territorial governor, but his calm professionalism remained constant. Reconstruction of formerly militant regions continues ahead of schedule, he reported. The Krathan population has adapted remarkably well to peaceful administration. Their industrial capacity has been successfully converted from military production to civilian manufacturing, providing employment and economic stability. The transformation of the Krathan territories had become a model for human administrative efficiency. Former military academies now taught engineering and agriculture. Weapons factories produced construction equipment and transportation vehicles. The populations that had once supported aggressive expansion now contributed to galactic prosperity through productive civilian work. Counselor Thanbel, his purple tentacles moving in slow, satisfied patterns, requested permission to speak. Governor Park, what has been the response of former military personnel to the occupational retraining programs? Extremely positive, Dong Hyen replied. Former soldiers have shown excellent aptitude for construction work, infrastructure maintenance, and logistics coordination. Many have expressed gratitude for the opportunity to build rather than destroy. Admiral So-young Choi joined the session from her flagship, now permanently stationed in the Galactic Core, to ensure rapid response to any emerging challenges. Her presence served as a gentle reminder of the military capabilities that maintained the peaceful order. We want to emphasize that human administration serves the interests of all galactic citizens, she explained. Our policies focus on maximizing prosperity, security, and opportunity for every species under our guidance. Ambassador Kaisan felt compelled to express his species' appreciation for the new order. The Vorthan Republic wishes to acknowledge the benefits we have experienced under human leadership. Our worlds have never been more secure or prosperous. Dr. Sujin Han, now director of the Department of Cultural Integration, had established programs that helped various species adapt to human administrative methods. Her approach emphasized demonstrating practical benefits rather than forcing compliance through intimidation. Cultural adaptation programs have shown remarkable success, she reported. Species that initially resisted unified standards now actively participate in efficiency improvement initiatives. The key has been showing tangible results, rather than demanding theoretical acceptance. The session concluded with Admiral Minho reviewing the upcoming year's development plans. New infrastructure projects would connect distant worlds through improved transportation networks. Educational programs would ensure all species could participate fully in galactic civilization. Scientific research initiatives would benefit from the combined knowledge of dozens of different species working together. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Ambassador Kaison reflected on how completely the galaxy had changed. The constant threat of hegemony expansion was gone. The inefficient debates that had characterized consortium governance had been replaced by clear decisions and prompt implementation. Trade flowed freely, conflicts were resolved quickly, and every world enjoyed unprecedented security. Admiral Choi had been correct during their private briefing weeks earlier. The humans had never deceived anyone about their intentions to establish peaceful relations with galactic civilization. The misunderstanding had been assuming they intended to join as junior members, rather than assume leadership responsibilities. Most species had discovered that human governance was surprisingly acceptable. The administrators were competent, fair in their decisions, and genuinely committed to promoting stability and prosperity throughout the galaxy. They had simply implemented these improvements without asking permission first, confident that the results would speak for themselves. And indeed, the results had proven them absolutely correct.